Good morning, all. We're going to get started, and I am wearing the mic because we are going to record this for those that were not brave and woke up early to come. So I know I probably don't need it because I have a pretty loud voice, but I'll try not to yell at you. So good morning. Welcome, sophomores and sophomore parents, to your first official college and academic advising event. I'm really excited to talk to you all a little bit about what the next few years look like from an academic and a college perspective as well. And I did strategically put the word academic before college because that's where you all are at right now as sophomores. You all should be focusing on your academic journey, and then the college journey will follow from there. But I also know, if experience tells me anything, that you all are itching to learn about the college part of that process. So I promise we will cover that today, but I want to start with the academic side of things. Before we do that, I want to give you all just a little bit about my educational background and how I ended up in this role at Bear Creek. I know some of you know this, but actually some of you probably don't. So I am an alumni of Bear Creek. I went here as a student myself. I graduated and I completed my undergraduate at Davidson College, which is a small liberal arts school in North Carolina. And I completed my degree, and while I was there, I started working in the admissions office. So first as unpaid labor as a tour guide, which in the North Carolina weather was not always the most fun job, but it was very exciting to share with prospective families about Davidson. And I worked my way up into actually a paid position in the office where I was completing information sessions, and I was actually reading applications as well, and going to high schools and talking to students about Davidson as well. That really sparked my love of education and of both the college process on both sides of the desk, so as the advisor as well as the reader of those files. I then came back to Bear Creek, I think as many of you know, and worked in admissions for 5 years. And while I was doing that, I completed my master's in higher education administration. And my focus in that program was on college admissions. So helping students understand the process of getting into college and also what's involved with that. And so that is a very brief background. If you ever want to hear about my master's thesis, I keep threatening to do a presentation on it one day. But it was basically looking at how colleges use the non-academic factors to help make decisions. So what are called psychosocial factors. So your motivation, your mindset, your resilience, and how are colleges measuring that in the application process. So I found it fascinating. But I'll stop there with my intro for the day because I want to turn and talk a little bit about what my goals are for this meeting. So I already alluded to this, of course, but my first goal is I'd love us to just talk a little bit about what's next academically. And so I want to do an overview of academic advising for the next couple of years, as well as look at what the graduation requirements are. Many of you know that the graduation requirements have changed for your class, so for the rising juniors. And some of you may not know, that might be news to you. So I want to make sure we talk about that briefly. For the students in the room, I know you're looking at me like, we already covered this. We did have an assembly where we went over that, but we want to make sure we get the parents up to speed as well. And then we will talk college. So I'll talk to you a little bit about the timeline of the next 2 years and what that looks like, what you should be doing, what you maybe shouldn't be focusing on, and then also go over just some general college information as well that are the questions I get asked a lot. I will probably repeat these answers for the next 2 years as well, but I find they're the types of questions that need to be repeated. So, and then I want to leave time, and I always say this, and I will do my best for lots of Q&A, because I'm sure you all will have questions, and if you're not the question asking type, I encourage you to be thinking throughout this presentation of what you might want to ask. Okay, so that brings us to junior year courses. So I'm going to throw this slide up, and I know it has a lot of dense text on it, but essentially what this is this is comparing the graduation requirements for the class of 2023 and 2024. So that's our current seniors and our current juniors. And then the column here is what your graduation requirements are. And like I said, I know students, we went over this in the assembly, and I'm sure you all were paying lots of attention. So this is now your quiz. So what are a couple changes that you all notice between the graduation requirements? Yeah.
You need less English and history credits?
Yes, that's correct. So the English and history credits have been reduced from 4.5 to 4. What does that mean? What classes are missing is the question that often follows. So for English, what that means is that the rhetoric class is no longer a required junior course. Okay, so previously that was required, now it's not required, and that was a semester-long half-credit course, so that's where we go from 4.5 to 4. Now, for those of you students that have met with me, and I see many familiar faces that I met with, I would still encourage you to take that rhetoric class unless there's a good reason why you think that there's a better option during that block. So there could very well be a reason. I was talking to one of your classmates who is involved in band, and she's like, I always do band and that always fills up my elective block, and I really want to try digital art as well. That's a great reason to maybe skip rhetoric, but generally speaking, that's a really good class. And if you have questions, we can talk about why I think that is. And then for history, what that means is that you are no longer required to take art history your senior year. So you used to half a year of government, half a year of art history. Again, unless there's a really compelling reason why you don't want to take art history, and there may be, but rule of thumb, I would still take that class. It's really valuable content, but if you don't want to, and there's a reason why, you're no longer required to take that class. Okay, so that covers the top two, English and history. What's the next thing that you see that's different? Yeah.
There's one less language credit.
That is correct, yes. So it used to be that you had to take 3 years of foreign language. Now, for graduation, you only have to take 2 years of foreign language. The reason for this, and we'll talk a little bit about why all the changes are made as we get to the end, but essentially this allows you to have some more flexibility. 3 years of language is still what I would generally recommend. The reason for that is, number one, it's a huge and incredibly valuable life skill to be able to learn multiple languages. Secondly, as my colleague Mrs. Paramo always says, you get to go on the language trips. If you're not in a language, you don't get to go on those trips. And then thirdly, from my perspective as a college advisor, there are colleges that require 3 years of language to apply. And there's others that don't require it, but they really, really like it. And so it's just a good rule of thumb to do 3 years. But the goal of these new requirements is to increase flexibility. So if students want to dig really deep into STEM, for example, it gives them more space to do that in their schedule. So you don't have to take 3 years of language, but again, let's have that conversation and talk about the pros and cons of dropping language your junior year. One change that I want to note is that for you all, how many of you are taking Latin? Raise your hand if you're taking Latin. Okay, so it used to be that Latin 2 was your first year of language in high school, obviously, but was your second credit. You don't get to just take 1 year Latin in high school anymore. So you have to take 2 years of the language in the physical high school. So if you do Latin, you have to go through Latin 3. Does that make sense? Because we started Latin 2 because we do Latin in middle school. Okay, what's next? What's the next change? It's up there. Yes?
The additional credits.
Yes. Yes, that's exactly right. So we've increased the additional credits from 1.5 to 2. So this is to balance that out a little bit. Just because we're reducing some of the required ways in which you get those credits doesn't mean that we want you to not be taking as many courses necessarily. So this increase is to encourage you to continue taking a robust schedule. And so we increase that additional requirement there by 0.5 credits. And so that all adds up to, those are the big changes, that all adds up to what you see here, which is the credit reduction in the minimum required graduation credits. So it used to be 27, and now it's 24. And again, the reason for this, and I said this to you all in assembly, it's not because the Bear Creek School is going, we want you to take less classes, you know, we think you only need 24 to graduate. You can graduate with 24, and that's just fine. But the goal of this change, the reason behind it, was to increase schedule flexibility and allow you all as high school students to explore different areas of interest. So I know there's some of you in this room that have wanted to take multiple STEM classes a year. That used to be really hard, or you had to give up your elective class that you might also really love. I know there's some of you that want to take multiple language classes or multiple electives. The goal of this change is to give you all as students the flexibility to be dipping deeper into some areas that you really want to invest in that were hard before because of the way we had structured our graduation requirements. And it is also to give some flexibility to students that may want to take a study hall, that's a good option for. Previously, you could do that, but things could get tight as far as your graduation credit. So this also gives some of that flexibility as well. And so that's exciting. It means that you all are the first class to get the benefits of that increased course flexibility, and I've already seen some of you taking advantage of that with your junior courses. Now this next slide, this slide scares me a little bit because there is so much nuance to advising you all on courses. And so before I talk about anything here, I want to say, please come and meet with me. You all as rising juniors have been given a bookings link with meeting times to connect with me. And you all as parents were given that same link as well in the monthly advising newsletter that comes out. If you're thinking, I don't see that link, I don't know what you're talking about, that's okay. Just let me know and I'll make sure you get that link. Bookings, I find, is the best way to schedule meetings because then we don't have to go back and forth 5 or 6 times about, you know, are you free Tuesday this time's X, Y, and Z. So I try and make it available, sign up for an appointment, and that is the best way to get specific course advice. So I do want to talk about sort of the broad course advising suggestions, but again, this is speaking in the broad brushstrokes. Your personal schedule, your personal nuances of what courses you take. The absolute best advice I can give is just come talk to me. That's what I'm here for, and that's part of what we offer as a school is that personalized advising, so take advantage of it. But for the sake of the presentation, I will go over kind of some broad brushstrokes of what you should be thinking about for junior year. So math, as it's been for many years, if you've been a Bear Creek student for many years, is you're going to take the course that's the next level in your progression. So if you're in pre-calculus, you have some options as far as if you want to do AP calculus or general calculus, but you'll be doing calculus if you want to take math. So that's another question. You have to complete up through Algebra 2. So if you haven't completed Algebra 2, then you're doing that. But otherwise, you do have some flexibility. So whatever is the next class in your math progression, that's where you're going to sign up for your course. For science, the rule of thumb is that junior year is the biology year at Bear Creek. So most of you all as freshmen did conceptual physics. Most of you all are doing chemistry right now, which sets you up to do biology your junior year. Again, you may be an exception to that progression, but that's generally what you'll be taking. And we offer different biology options. So we offer a marine biology class, a biomedicine course, and AP biology as well. So there's different options within that sort of biology umbrella of what you can take. Science is often a place where students like to double up. They want to also take something like engineering or environmental science. And so again, let's have that conversation. The other thing that I'm starting to see as an advisor that I just want to put on your radar, because you're at the grade, students and parents, where you still have some flexibility about it, is if you chose not to take physics your freshman year and you want to study a STEM-related field in college, you really need some sort of physics course, okay? So colleges want to see physics, chemistry, and biology. So if you skipped physics because you wanted to jump right into chemistry, you may be missing a class that colleges are going to want to see, which is that physics strand of science. It matters most if you're interested in studying any sort of STEM in college. So I just want to note that because I'm starting to see that with the rising seniors, as I'm seeing students be like, I want to do, some sort of biomed or biotech, and I'm like, oh, you don't have a physics class, and they might not be super jazzed about AP Physics, which is really their option at that point. We can sort of talk about engineering as well. So I just want to note that for you, because if that is you and you're going, yep, that's me, then think about maybe taking some sort of physics class this year or next year, or let's have a conversation about how you can get that physics requirement. So next is English and history. So for both of those, your option is either the honors class or the AP class. All the juniors are going to take US history of some form. And then for English, the focus is, the courses have different names, but the focus is going to be more on the writing side, the writing and the writing formation side of English, although I promise you, you'll still do lots of reading and lit analysis as well. But that's a little bit more the focus junior year, is the writing. And then language, we already talked about this. The question is, do you want to do that third year? And then for Christian studies, that's required. So you'll get your half-year credit in your language class, which is philosophical theology. And then for rhetoric, I hope you appreciate my really cheesy Shakespeare reference. But the question is whether or not to take rhetoric. And I already alluded to that. If you don't have a reason why you're thinking of taking it other than, I'm not really that excited about public speaking, I tell all the students that's the reason to take rhetoric if you're not that excited about public speaking, because it will give you the skills to grow in confidence as a public speaker. But we can talk about that because it is now not a required class, so it does increase your flexibility. And then electives, as you know, we have lots of options, and we can talk through what that looks like. Okay. I want to briefly mention the other credits. And again, you all are getting the benefit of this now because I'm also talking to some of our seniors about this. And it's getting late for them. That graduation clock is ticking. So I would really encourage you all at this point to make sure that you are not neglecting your PE and your community service requirements. So as you saw on the... I'm setting off Siri. As you saw on the slide, you have a PE requirement to graduate. You can get that requirement by playing a Bear Creek sport, by taking our strength training class, or you can also get that through doing something external and then applying for credit for that. So there's different options in how you get that credit, but if you haven't been playing a sport or doing anything active, or you have, but it's outside of Bear Creek and you haven't been requesting those credits, now's a great time to do it, because you don't want to wait till senior year and then have to suddenly develop a deep passion for horseback riding, or, play all 3 sports because you need all those credits. So, and again, I'll try and help you catch that before senior year. It's not all on you, but take ownership of that and make sure you're working towards completing that credit. And then the even bigger one is community service. Bear Creek offers so many opportunities for community service for you all, and I know from listening to the student life team that we're looking at continuing to increase those next year. But getting involved in community service now, if you haven't already, and logging those hours, because I talked to some of our seniors who still needed 60 hours to graduate, and they said, we've done all those hours, we just didn't bother to log them in the system, which I understand, but at the end of the day, we need them logged in the system to give you credit for them. So just make it a habit of going in. We have a new system for logging community service, which I believe Mr. Davison rolled out to you all. If he hasn't, he will be. So it's supposed to be easier to help you not kind of go through the ex-Duval process, which I know is a little bit logistically intense. So it's meant to be easier to do that, but you want to log those hours now, because you don't want to be one of my awesome seniors who they're all still amazing, but who are looking at having to complete quite a few hours before graduation. The other 2 things I'll say about this is I would hope that it's not just checking a box for you. Community service is something really valuable for you all to be doing, to give back to the community, to invest. And so I hope that you don't look at it as just checking the box. I'm talking about it that way because it is a graduation requirement, but I certainly think there's a lot more value in that. The other piece of that, going back to the more cold, hard truth side of it, is that colleges like to see that. They like to see that you're investing in giving back and being intentional. So we're going to talk about what do colleges want to see in a couple minutes, and that's something that is a great sort of tip, is get involved in the community. Okay. I want to address this question up front because this is probably the number one question I get from students and parents, is how many AP classes should I be taking? And I have heard all sorts of philosophies behind this as far as what you hear out in the world. You need X number of APs to go to college. You need to take these specific APs to get into college. All of this different information that trickles back down to me through the advising meetings. And I understand where that comes from because the AP program is a big piece of what we hear colleges might be looking for. And so I just want to get up here and tell you all what I know from my experience, what colleges share with us as advisors, and really I hope that you can take this advice and let it sink in and give up some of those preconceived ideas that I need to take, AP chemistry to graduate and go to a good college. That's not the case, I promise. So this is my beautiful scale metaphor. I was an English major, so I got to throw in some sort of metaphor. But I think this one's pretty self-explanatory, okay? So when you're thinking about your courses that you're taking junior and senior year, I want you to think about a balance between course rigor and your GPA. Okay, so let's say that we have 7 periods at Bear Creek. Let's say you say, I want to take 7 AP classes. I'm not even sure it's possible, but for the sake of the hypothetical, you might be able to complete all those AP classes, but what impact is that going to have on your GPA? For some students, that might have a minimal impact. They might be able to carry a load of multiple AP classes. For some students, that might mean that GPA shifts, because that's a lot of courses, that's a lot of time studying, that's a lot of rigor that you're taking on as a student. And so obviously you can play with that analogy of balancing that course rigor and that GPA. So that's what I encourage you all to think about, is how can I balance the APs I'm taking with my ability to get a solid grade in that class. Now, I was thinking about this as I was preparing this presentation, and I hate the idea of comparing success, measuring success as just a grade, because there is so much more to success in a course. And so I want to be very clear on that. However, it is important to think about the impact that course rigor has on your GPA, because those are pieces that colleges are looking at. They're looking at your GPA. Every college is going to ask you, what was your GPA? They're also going to ask you, what classes did you take? So there's a joke that's not very funny, but college advisors, we like it. That's a parent comes to you and says, should my student take, AP US history, and what if they get a B? Or should they take the honors class and get an A? And the joke is, well, they should take the AP class and get an A. So obviously that would be the ideal, is to have the maximum rigor and the maximum GPA. Now that is going to look different for every student, and that is where our philosophy at Bear Creek of being the individual God intends. That's where our college and academic advising philosophy of being personalized is so critical. All of you as students in this room should not be taking the same number of AP classes, and that's okay. There's nothing inherently better or worse about an AP or honors class. It is an opportunity to have increased rigor in an area of study that you might be particularly interested in, or you want to challenge yourself in. That's all an AP class means. So there is value in taking those classes to challenge yourself, to grow as a student, but just to sign up for every AP imaginable because you go, well, I heard that colleges like AP classes, you're forgetting about this piece of the puzzle too. Okay? And this is one of those places where having a personalized conversation is the most important thing, right? Because this is the overview, this is the philosophical point, but what that looks like for each of you as students is going to be personalized. And so I want to make sure we're having that conversation. How do I balance challenging myself, taking classes in areas I love, showing colleges that I'm putting forth my best effort and growing as a student, but how do I do so in a way that I feel like I can still be successful? The other piece that I want to mention as I was thinking about discussing this with you all, is it's not just about GPA. I should have also added your commitment to other activities. So I've seen sometimes that students will load up on AP classes and they'll say, oh, I can't do speech and debate anymore because I have so much homework. Or I've got to drop off the basketball team, or I got to stop running cross country because I just don't have the time. And that's not seeing the finish line if you're taking those classes just because you think that's what colleges want to see. Because guess what colleges also want to see? They want to see you're engaged and invested in your community here. They want to see what type of student will you be, but what type of community member will you be as well. So that's the other piece of this puzzle, is you may be able to take 7 AP classes, again, for sake of argument, and do fine, but have you gotten enough sleep? What impact is that having on your mental health? And are you able to spend time with your friends and family, inside and outside of school? Are you able to continue doing the things that you love to do? And they don't have to be organized activities. It could be that you stop reading, or stop going to your church group because you feel like, oh, I have a test tomorrow. So those are the other intangibles to think about. And again, there's value to those outside of college, but as the college advisor, I would also say colleges are going to be looking at those things as well. Okay. So now we're going to switch and talk a little bit about the college side of things. And as I said, I have a feeling, although maybe I'm wrong, that this is a lot of why you all wanted to come this morning, is start hearing some of this college advice. And as I've mentioned, our college advising philosophy here at Bear Creek is a best fit philosophy. And what that means is that we don't believe that there's one college that's right for every student. So I always pick on Davidson because it's my alma mater. Davidson is not right for every student in this room. It's a small school, so you might want a big school. Davidson's not going to be the right choice for you because it's about 2,000 students. It's a liberal arts college, so really great if you're interested in liberal arts classes. Also really strong pre-med program, not that strong computer science program. So if you want to do coding, probably don't want to go to Davidson. North Carolina is its own separate world, let me tell you, if you've never been. And so for some of you, that might be exciting. For some of you, you're like, I don't like the heat, I don't like the bugs, I do not like North Carolina. And so those are just, of course, a couple of the reasons. But that is the idea with Best Fit, is it's not just giving you all a list of colleges and saying, apply to these. Or it's not just giving you the top colleges from the US News and World Report and saying, apply to these. It's really working with each of you as students, learning about you and your goals, about who you are, about what you want to study, about what you want to do, and then partnering with you all as parents and you all as students to help craft a college process and a college list that best fit those goals. And the Rising Seniors are going through that right now. So they're meeting with me, our first official one-on-one meeting, and I'm giving them a list of about 15 to 20 schools, and I've spent at least an hour with each of their surveys going through and curating a list based on what they're looking for in a college. So that's not just a copy and paste list. And that's the type of personalization that we mean when we say best fit. It's going to require effort on your part too, to get to know me, to share with me about your goals. So I would encourage you, start building that rapport now. Come meet with me so I know who you are. So I call you by name in the morning, which terrifies some of the seniors still. They're like, oh gosh, she's saying good morning to me. But the more we know one another, the more I know about you, the better I can support you in this process. Okay, so I want to briefly talk through the college timeline and what you can expect over the next couple years. So where you all are right now is in grade 10 spring, I think, right? Or second semester, whatever you want to call it. I kind of went back and forth on what to call that, but you know where you are. So there's really 4 things that you need to be doing, and they're easy. I promise. The first is to work hard and stay focused on academics. As I mentioned, I called it the academic and college advising presentation because really right now as students, from the academic perspective, the best thing you can be doing is continuing to invest in your classes. I know this time of year you start dragging. You have to start super gluing your eyes open to stay awake in class. Continue getting good sleep. It's okay to take a breath, take a rest, but I would encourage you to persevere to the finish line and not sort of let off the gas as we get into that second semester where things can start to drag. And then that also means looking ahead towards next year. If you haven't met with me yet about course advising, it's not too late. I know you're going, we already submitted our courses, Mr. Willard's already built the schedule. That's okay. There's still time. So if you haven't met with me about course advising yet, do so, because that'll help prepare you academically for next year. The other thing to note about this, and Mrs. Pramo just walked in, and so I'm excited to say that both of us will be emailing students who signed up for AP classes with some information. If you're signing up for a lot of AP classes, we're going to ask you to go talk to the teachers. So there's kind of some processes and protocols for that. So you can expect that email within the next couple weeks or so. So just so you're not surprised that that's coming out, that's a part of that partnership process as well. The second thing that you can do is continue investing in activities and areas of interest. Don't give up on whatever you like doing, whether that be art, which is of course the example here, whether that's sports, whether that's service, whether that's babysitting and spending a lot of time investing in community in that way. It doesn't have to be an organized activity, but whatever you love doing, continue doing that. Don't sacrifice that. The third is to be thoughtful about your summer plans. So at this point, you can start. You don't have to, but if you are going on a family trip, for example, and you're going to Arizona, I would encourage you, drive through the local campuses. You're not at the point where you have to plan a whole trip around visiting colleges. If you want to do that, that's just fine. But I would encourage you to build it into your summer. Go to Seattle, visit University of Washington, that's close. And that will let you see what a large state college looks like, state university looks like. And so but start doing some low stakes college research over the summer. And then the other thing is thinking about how you're spending your summer. Probably not on the couch sleeping all day, although it's appealing, but doing something. And again, what that thing is doesn't really matter because it's going to be based on who you are. It might mean, I was talking to a student that is going to be really involved in the soccer camps that we do here, both as a participant and then also volunteering. It might be getting involved with a local coding program for those of you that are interested in computer science. But being mindful about how you spend your summer is important. And it's not just so you can put that on your college application of, I went to this camp as a rising junior and so please admit me to your college. It's really about exploring, are those things I'm interested in? So when you go to UW, do I like the feel of this campus? Do I feel like I would have no idea how to get from classroom to classroom? Or do I like the sense of this big open campus with lots of buildings and spaces and lots of food options as well? For different summer programs or volunteering or internships, it's the same thing. Do I like programming? How do I feel about doing a camp or some sort of internship where I'm doing that from 9 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon? Does that just make me want to fall back asleep on the couch, or is that something that really energizes me? So use this summer and the next summer as well as an opportunity to explore and be curious about what you might want to do after Bear Creek. And then lastly, and I've already belabored it, of course, is schedule a meeting with me. And to be clear, that bookings link is live. So if you've already met with me, it's not a one token system. You can meet with me again as many times as you want. I have some seniors that met with me 2 times a week throughout the fall. So I promise I'll tell you if it's too much. And this year, sophomore year, it might get a little repetitive, but if you want to meet with me, if you have a question, please, that's what I'm here for. So don't hesitate to sign up for a meeting. Parents, I want to encourage you to let your child take the lead on that, okay? But I want to also be very clear that you all are welcome at those meetings. If you have questions, you're also welcome to schedule a meeting. So it's not just for the students, but I am trying to empower you as students to be the drivers of this process. So just think of that balance, but the link is live for all of you. Okay, so that brings us to next fall. So there's really 4 things you have to do, and most of them are gonna look pretty familiar. So 3 of them are really the same things, and that's where you're at in this process. Again, that's why it's academic and college advising right now. Continue to work hard and stay focused on your classes. Continue investing in activities and areas of interest. The exact same thing you're doing now, hopefully. And then meet with me as needed. You will find that in the fall of junior year, probably meeting with me one-on-one is not going to happen because I am focused on the seniors. And no juniors like it, but they all really like it when they get to senior year because then I'm gonna be focused on you. So as you'll see in the timeline, senior fall is very busy. That's when you're applying. But if you have a question, the best way to get me in the fall is to send me a Teams message or an email, and then also to come to my presentations as well. And then the thing that is new is to attend the college visits and events at Bear Creek. Students and parents, just give me a slight raise of hand if you knew that we had college visits at Bear Creek. Okay, good. I like to see that, a lot of you. And it's okay if you didn't, now you do. So Bear Creek is very fortunate that we have truly hundreds of colleges that come every year, and it's typically in the fall, to Bear Creek to share about their institution. This is a great way to start that college process your junior fall. That you can start learning about different colleges, start exploring different schools. When I talked about this in a previous presentation, afterwards I thought, oh, and I should have said something, so I'm gonna say it to you all, is it's fine to go to the presentations of the schools you know. So let me see, I'll pick on Vanderbilt. So Vanderbilt's a school a lot of people know, maybe not everyone, but it's a very popular college right now, super, their application numbers are skyrocketing. And so you're like, oh, Vanderbilt's coming to Bear Creek. I know that's a good school. I'm gonna go to Vanderbilt. That's just fine. But I would really encourage you, especially your junior year, attend some of those that you have never heard of the school before, because this is your time to not be deciding on the 8 colleges you're going to apply to. It's your time right now to be exploring and learning about what are the differences that colleges have to offer. I go to a talk with a really large college where they have maybe 50,000 students. What does that feel like to hear about what programs they have to offer versus going to a really small personalized college where you're basically meeting one-on-one with an academic mentor your freshman through senior year, and you basically do tutorials with them versus a real classroom setting. 2 very different college experiences, and so how do you feel about each of those? So again, it's fine to go to Vanderbilt or any other school that you've heard of before, but I would really encourage you, pick some that you haven't heard of. The other thing I would say about this is that you'll see in the fall, so those are published online. Those go out in the Bear Facts every week, so parents, you all will see those. Those are also in Naviance as well, and students, you'll be able to actually register for them, which I would encourage you to do. But those, you'll see that there's often dozens a week, so you don't have to feel that you have to attend every one of them. Don't stress yourself out, but pick a handful that you do want to prioritize and make it a commitment to go to those, even the ones before school. Make it a commitment to go. And do register for them on Naviance. If you forget, you can still show up, but colleges track that information. So it's always good to show them that you're interested, that you're going to the presentations that they're offering to you as well. Okay, grade 11 spring. So these 3 are the same, so continue working hard on your classes, continue investing in your activities, attend those college visits and events. But then there are some new things that come into play your junior spring. And so the first is to consider an SAT or ACT prep class. This is not required. So no one's gonna check up on you, either myself or the college, on whether or not you did that. But it is something valuable that you can do. We offer an SAT school day here at Bear Creek. We offer one in the fall and one in the spring. I would really encourage you to take advantage of that opportunity. One of my rising juniors just sent me a message and he said, the SAT is completely booked until August. The family would have to, I believe, fly to California, okay, to take it. So we offer this as a resource to you all. Only Bear Creek students can sign up for that one. So it's not the Hunger Games, if that reference is still salient, where you have to fight everyone else for a spot. We offer it. If that date doesn't work, that's fine. If you don't want to take it that day, it's not required, but I cannot encourage you strongly enough to take that SAT. There will be a Rising Senior information session similar to what we're doing now, but getting a little bit more into the weeds as you get closer to that process. So make sure you mark that on your calendar. And then you're basically starting in January, you will be able to schedule a one-on-one meeting with me, just like you did this year for course advising, but the focus will be split. We'll do a little bit of course advising, but senior year things typically fall actually pretty much into place because you've set yourself up well junior year. So the bulk of that process will be the college planning, beginning that college planning journey. And then lastly is asking teachers for letters of recommendation after spring break. This will all be covered in the junior presentation that you're going to go to right here. So I'm not going to say more about that now because there's really no need, but that is what you can expect. And then grade 12. I have put this up on the slide. This is a very broad overview of the college process because right now we don't really need to be getting into the weeds. But you're going to begin it in the summer. In the fall, you're going to complete your early applications. And then in January, your regular. You're going to fill out your financial aid documents. And then in the spring, you're going to receive your college decisions. And for those of you that have seniors in the room or have senior friends, you'll make that final decision on May 1st. Okay, so now a couple FAQs. So the first is, what do colleges look for? And we will revisit these questions over the next 2 years. So like I said, you're gonna get tired of these FAQs, but I get the same questions, so I know that it's still important to emphasize them. And colleges are looking for a variety of different things, right? Not all college is the same in what they want and what they value in students. What I would say broadly is that colleges want to see what type of student you'll be and what type of community member you'll be. And I already said that, and that is really, if I could boil it down, that's what colleges are looking for. They want to understand, who will you be when you come to their campus? How will you contribute? How will you engage? And how will you invest? So they're looking for students that have done all of those things at their high school. What can I do to increase my chances of being accepted into insert whatever college you want here? The answer is continue to invest in your academic classes and challenge yourself, and continue to engage in activities and areas of interest. We will talk more strategically your senior fall about some ways that you can fill out the application, being thoughtful about what you talk about in your essay, but I would say one of the number one things, the number one misinformation pieces that I hear over and over and over again is people hearing ways from their, dentist cousin's brother about how you game the system, about if you write about this, you get into college or a good college, whatever that means. If you do this activity, you get into a good college. It's just not the case. I hate to tell you, we all would like there to be a magic bullet. We'd all like to know the solution, know the secret. It's really not, that's not how college review works. That's not what colleges are looking for. And so there, unfortunately, is no way to increase your chances in that sense, to game the system. That's not to say there aren't ways that you can be thoughtful and strategic about putting forth the best picture of you as an applicant. Okay, so I want to be clear on that. It doesn't mean there's nothing you can do, but there really is no magic solution. So what I encourage you to do is not focus on this question of increasing your chances, but continue to focus on what you like, what you want to do and then match colleges to that versus thinking about, okay, I want to get into this college. Will colleges understand the rigor of Bear Creek? This is a question I get a lot, often tied to APs as well. So you will talk to students at other schools, or you'll talk to parents with children at other schools, and they'll say, my child has taken 30 AP classes, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, my child has only taken 2 AP classes, so how could they ever get into college, right? Colleges understand that high schools all have different philosophies around AP, all have different philosophies around course rigor, all offer different courses, and so it is my job to make sure I convey that to the colleges, and it's also the college's job to understand and decode that information. If you were sitting here 15 years ago and we were talking about this, I would say, you know, there probably are colleges that don't know about Bear Creek. We're a small school, we're really new. That's not the case anymore. As I said, I worked in Davidson's admissions office, so of course, where'd you go to high school comes up. And Davidson is considered a highly selective school, okay? So it's a school where, you know, it's hard to get in. And they knew about Bear Creek. They said, that's a great school. And that's in North Carolina, okay? So it's not in our backyard. So colleges know about Bear Creek, they understand the type of program we have, and they also understand some of the nitty-gritty pieces of, you know, our APs, how we look at those things, what our general baseline course rigor is, all of those pieces as well. I fill out a school profile that I send to them that you can also find on the website. So if you're curious about what I'm telling the colleges, it's not a secret. We publish that so you all can see it as well. It's on the school website and it's updated every year. And again, the other piece is that I write a personalized letter for every senior that goes to all the colleges they're applying to. And in that letter, I'm able to talk about who that student is, about their academic journey, about their personal journey, and that's another piece of how colleges will understand that rigor. And if you have more questions about that, again, we will keep talking about that over the next 2 years, but for now, I think that's a good baseline answer. Should I take standardized tests? I keep forgetting to address this, and I keep getting it in Q&As, so I'm going to answer it. The answer is yes. So there's a lot of questions right now about colleges going test optional or eliminating standardized testing altogether. With the exception of the UC school system, I believe wholeheartedly that they are going to stay test blind, meaning they don't want your test scores, don't send them, they won't look at them. Other colleges are all sort of straddling the line right now. They're saying for next year, we're still test optional, but we're not making an official policy decision right now about officially, are we staying test optional or are we requiring standardized tests again? So for those of you that are sophomores, we don't know what it's going to look like when you're a senior. So I would strongly encourage you to keep focused on standardized tests. We offer practice opportunities here. That's why we do it. Take those seriously, because at the end of the day, if you go all the way through senior year and you're applying to colleges and they're test optional, the worst thing that happens is we say you don't need to submit your scores, but at least you have them in your toolkit. The worst thing that could happen actually is you come to me senior year and you're like, I want to apply to a college, and I'll just pick on MIT because they're a college everyone knows. I want to apply to MIT. I'm really interested in STEM. Guess what? They require the SAT. Non-negotiable. So you want to make sure you're putting those pieces in place to set yourself up for success, and knowing that we don't know what the college landscape as far as standardized testing is going to be in 2 years. I am also saying the same thing though to the rising seniors. The type of school Bear Creek is, colleges know that you have opportunities for testing. They know that you've been offered practice tests. They know we offer the SAT school day. So it's worth being serious about testing, and then we can have that conversation about where you do or don't send scores. The other thing I'll say very briefly, because this would take up probably 3 hours, and Mrs. Promo and I were just at a conference and it did take up over 3 hours, is the SAT is changing. So the 2 biggest changes are that it is going digital and that it is becoming adaptive, which means the level of challenge for the questions will fluctuate based on how you are doing on the previous section on the test. We can talk more about that. The reality is that the SAT, the College Board, has not released a lot of information yet. So some international schools and international students, so not in the US, have taken that test actually this spring. So they're doing lots of sort of data on that, looking at it, what went well, what didn't go. We actually still don't know a lot. And so we're still learning. College Board has not released lots of information, but you all will be taking the digital SAT. That I can tell you. So we'll talk a little bit about that, what that looks like, how that shapes that process. The adaptive piece is something I've had to get used to, so if you have questions about that, we can talk about that as well. Okay, and then parents. How can you support your child during this process? Well, being here this morning is a great way to do so. I would encourage you to be asking great questions and facilitating opportunities for your child to learn about the college process and continuing to support them in those areas of passions as well. As we get into junior and senior year, we'll talk much more like brass tacks of, okay, I'd encourage you to fill out the different financial aid forms. I'd encourage you to talk about costs of college, all of those different more logistical pieces. I would not encourage you to write the essay for your child. But that's really what you can be doing right now, is encouraging and supporting and asking good questions yourself. And on that note, I've put up this slide at a couple presentations. These are the books that I would recommend. If there's one thing as a parent, you're like, I'm really itching, I want to do something. These are the best books that I would say. There's others out there that are really good, but these are the ones that I have found to be really valuable. A couple things I want to say about these. So these two are going to give you some ideas about college, but they're more talking about how do you think about this college journey. This guide is very logistical. So this is going to give you a list of schools, going to tell you about the schools. So it's a great way, again, to start to educate yourself on the colleges that are out there. This book, which came out a little blurry, my apologies, is about the Varsity Blues admissions scandal, which has been in the news. And so it's good to understand kind of where college admissions is after that, if that's something that you're wondering about or concerned about. It's a great book. There's a lot of books about it, but I like that one in particular. And then this is probably my favorite book, and it's not just because it has Davidson featured, but Who Gets In and Why, A Year Inside College Admissions. Jeffrey Slingo is really groundbreaking in this area, that he was able to get access to different admissions offices and view their process, which are very, very closed doors. I signed all sorts of waivers when I started reading files at Davidson. I'm not kidding. This process is very, they don't necessarily, it's opaque, and although they say they want it to be transparent, and they do, and they meaning colleges, there's also pieces of it that they want to keep private. So he was able to get access to admissions offices, and it gives you really an amazing picture into what happens in those admissions meetings. So again, what is all this about and for? We're working together to help you all as students become the individual God intends by guiding you through this application process. So if there's one thing that we haven't talked about, because we've talked about a lot, that you can be doing right now, and I promise I'm not just going to put up work hard in your classes one more time, although maybe I should have, it's this. At this point, you should really be in a phase of self-discovery. Students, I sent this to you in my riveting monthly updates that I know you all read in teams. And parents, I sent this to you in the monthly newsletter that we send out as an advising office. This is in Naviance. This is a screen grab. And this is under the self-discovery tab at the top. There's a lot of really phenomenal short sort of assessments that you can take as students that are going to help you understand your strengths. They're going to help you understand what are areas that you might be interested in continuing to explore. And based on your strengths, what might be certain careers or jobs or pathways that align with your passions and sort of your personality, for lack of a better word. So if there's one additional thing you can be doing right now, start exploring these. It's a great way to start getting a sense of what pathway you might want to be taking. And then these are really important, so don't compare your process to others. That counts for APs. If you're talking to your friends about APs, I know it's hard, but it really is personalized. Be cautious of the phrase I've heard. Like I said, there's so much misinformation out there. There's also good information. So I'm not trying to spook you all that everything out there is wrong and bad, but there's so much misinformation. So if you hear it from your friend's sister, I'm sure she's wonderful, but check, ask me, and I'll give you some information on that. And then remember, your worth is not contingent on where you go to college. I know we have about 5 minutes for questions. Students, I know you have to get to class, but I just want to end with this scripture from Jeremiah. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. And I thought that was summed up really beautifully in the conference that Mrs. Promo and I just went to. We heard an amazing speaker talk about his unconventional journey to being a best-selling author. And he said, when is it that college became the destination? College is not the destination. College is not the dream. College is just part of the process to get there. So I'll leave you with that because I think it's really important. I said I would leave time, 5 minutes. I'm not saying that's generous Q&A time, but I left some time. Students, if you have to head off to class, I will not be offended. You can start heading off. If you want to wait, you can as well. And then parents, if you have questions, I will be hanging out in the back, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you all so much for coming this morning. I really appreciate it.